And we're back. You're watching Sports Federation TV. We have the under-18 world champ with us just now, and right now a phenomenal athlete and an administrator from climbing is joining us. Let's welcome Saskia Thomas and Chris Naude. Welcome, guys. Okay, so climbing has so many disciplines. Would you run us through some of those?
Yes, thanks. So the basic thing in climbing is that there are 3 different disciplines that are competitive. So we have lead climbing, which is the more traditional one, which is the rope climbing that everybody knows and sees, and that's what most people think of as climbing. And more recently, since about 1995, I would say it only started, is the bouldering discipline, which people started bouldering just to get strong for lead climbing, until they discovered it was really a lot of fun, and decided that it's more sociable, and you can climb harder routes and all sorts of stuff. So that became really popular, and I would say that's definitely the fastest growing area within the climbing sphere. And then more recently we've seen the rise of speed climbing, which is a strange one, and not particularly there's no consensus about whether this is a good idea or not, but it is what it is. It's part of the Olympic formula, and it's here to stay. I suspect that we're going to see that speed climbing in South Africa, particularly where it's a pretty new sport, will actually take off, because it's a very easy one to understand and get into.
South Africans like to go fast. I think the world knows that.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. Now, Saskia, how did you get involved in the sport of climbing?
Climbing kind of came along rather unexpectedly. I just had a friend who said one day I must come and join him at one of these rock climbing walls, and I didn't understand how we were going indoors when I thought we were actually going to go outside. And I got taken to a little gym that was part of our university, and next thing I knew, like 2 hours had passed and I could hardly move my fingers, or my forearms were just larger than they'd ever been, and I had new respect for this rock climbing discipline that I'd now come across. Yeah.
So you were introduced to the sport socially.
Yes.
And then it became something that you've registered for and developed in.
Yes.
So what's the road been like from that point up to now?
Climbing has always been a social thing for me. But I think through social, we've actually pushed each other quite hard through the sport. We end up spending far too long at the climbing wall, trying to see who can outdo the next person with a maybe more intense move, or seeing how it goes. And I think through that whole lots of pressure that we put on each other, we ended up just getting better and better rather quickly, and we started hearing about leagues that were going on in the Cape Town area, and started climbing with better climbers, and slowly but surely then I heard about other competitions that were happening and tried to see how it would go, and turns out it went quite well at the end of the day.
Well, very well actually, and we're going to go into that just now. Now Chris, since we last spoke, what's happened in the world of climbing in the Western Cape?
The Western Cape sent a team to the national lead climbing about a month ago, and we did very well in that. And prior to that, 2 months before that, we had the National Boulder Championship in Cape Town, at City Rock here in Cape Town, and that was certainly a huge success for the national sport, but particularly for the Western Cape. We took the overall trophy, and Saskia came first in the women's open.
He's just stole your moments.
We also have the men's open champion and what have you is also from the Western Cape. So the Western Cape has really excelled now, and part of that is because we have access to the natural resources in terms of climbing. So we are sitting a stone's throw away, not quite a stone's throw away, 3-hour drive away from one of the top bouldering destinations in the world. And both of us have just been up there recently, and I'm going up again this weekend. But it's just packed with international climbers at the moment. You feel like you're in a foreign country. There's Germans and Italians and Americans and Japanese and Koreans, and everybody's camping in really cold conditions just to get
Wow.
access to this rock.
Now with the Western
Very
Cape,
cold.
yeah, with the Western Cape, being blessed in terms of boulders
Yeah.
and mountains
Yeah.
and the environment that's conducive to your sport. Are you seeing a growth in the numbers?
We are seeing a huge growth in numbers, not only in the competitive side, but probably more in the social side. So we've got our youngsters now. We've just had a youth camp up in Rocklands, and that grew to, we had, I think, 40 youngsters camping in the mountains in winter to go and to get access to this new sport, which I think it's a huge growth for us. So it's been hugely positive.
And is this generally a winter sport?
Bouldering is a winter
Yes.
sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is it expensive then? I mean, one would assume that the equipment during the winter would be a lot more to sustain oneself when they're out in those conditions.
You just get tough, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
But
bare
it-
minimum
yeah.
and people manage the climate.
Luckily, there's really nice warm fires in the evening, so we get to go and heat up and de-thaw. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah.
Now, Saskia, you
Yeah.
were at the South African Championship and
Yes, I was.
you competed in the women's open division.
Yes.
And you
yes,
are currently the South African women's champion.
Yes.
Now, from
indeed.
your humble social beginnings of just competing with your friends at the local leagues and to
Yeah.
this point,
Yeah.
how long has it taken you?
My first climb was only about 3 years ago. So, and I was kind of in and out doing it, and then suddenly this year everything clicked, and I did a lot of climbing, and then suddenly I ended up getting that kind of achievement, and it's been incredible. And I don't think most people I say to in my friend group, they kind of fall off their chair. They didn't really. I hadn't even told them that I was really taking it seriously and doing some more competitions, which is quite exciting, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
3 years, that's quite an accomplishment. Is she a natural, Chris?
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be called a natural in
I think
the climbing
part of
world.
it, though, she mentioned a very important part there, is that she spent a lot more time climbing, and
Yeah.
like any sport, if you spend a lot of time
Yeah.
doing it, you get good at it. And
Yeah.
it's a question that I'm often asked. How many times a week do you think I should train? And the answer to that is as often as you possibly can. So if you can do it 7 days a week, that would be good. Most people have quite some difficulty with
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
as much as you can. That's
But
the
I
answer
think
to that.
there's definitely a climbing bug that catches people.
Yes.
But it's definitely, I think climbing is a lot like a lot of other outdoor sports, like trail running and things like that.
Yes.
There's some people who are much older and they are still climbing incredibly well. I think there's a lot of, the experience really shows through after many years of climbing. And we have some amazing climbers that climb at our little bouldering gym, and they've been coming there for years, and their finger strength is something I've never seen before. They hold on to the tiniest little holes in the wall, and it's like it's holding on to this couch over here.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a big climb. You get pretty good
Fever.
in the beginning, and then you realize that it's actually going to be quite a lot of hard work before you start climbing.
The real strength in your fingers
Yeah.
takes years to develop.
Because
Sure.
strength in fingers. There's not many other sports that ever really
Yeah.
require you to be able to pull yourself up on
I actually saw
one
a
or two
meme.
little fingers. Like it's not normal.
I saw a meme yesterday, actually, and it
Yeah.
was a little finger with the bicep on it. And I would have
Well,
never
there we go.
I would have never
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
that finger strength. I
Yes.
mean, who would think about the muscles in your fingers and how important? Well, obviously for your
Yeah.
sport.
It
Now,
is incredibly
Saskia,
important.
you mentioned that you had friends who introduced you to the sport,
Yes.
and because you were kind of socializing and competing at the
Yeah.
same time, it
Yeah.
developed. You just got better and better, and
Yeah.
I suppose that plays it's a huge factor when
Yes.
you enjoy doing the sport with the people
Amazing.
that's there. It would encourage one to want to be
Yeah.
more at the league venues,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Hey,
it's so easy to fall in love with the whole sport at the end of the day, because it is such a social environment to be in, and everyone is incredibly supportive as well. There's this amazing air of everyone wanting you to get to the top of whatever boulder you're climbing or whatever you're doing, and that's very unique. You know, it's personal, but it's quite a team goal that a lot of people have, which is really beautiful. Yeah.
Well, Saskia, you know, you are beaming love for your sport and love for your venues. And
I do love climbing. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and your peers.
Yeah.
And you've brought a nice video, so let's have a look at that so people can have a better understanding of the sport itself.
Yes. So in the video you just saw there, that's Chris's son David over there doing an incredible route. It's called the Vice. It's a 8B. So that's the kind of grading system that we've got in the bouldering. Just to give you a little bit of a feel for what you just saw, because it is really amazing. You can see the kind of precision that you have to go through, trying to get your hand exactly on every piece of rock that's going to get you up to the top of the boulder. Yeah. It's not just, you know, getting on and just quickly going through.
No, of course.
So what's really unique about climbing is the whole beta that we often talk about, and I think people that are new to climbing, they keep on hearing people talking about the beta, and they're like, what's this thing?
What is the beta?
What is the beta? And then you're like, okay, but I'll tell you what the beta is. And a lot of climbs all have like a unique way that somebody will do the route. So say now they'll get their foot up a little bit higher on the rock, and then they'll reach up and they'll be able to get higher, or somebody who's taller will then be able to reach it without getting their foot up higher. So you'll see David will have done that route and his way, and he would have had his specific beta to now climb that route very, very finely. And I mean, most people look at climbing and they think that was probably really easy. And it's something else. I think only when you get to the rock for the first time and you have to chalk up your hands and you kind of grab onto this gritty rock and you feel how rough it is, and you try and then do all of these big moves, I think then you only really appreciate what some of these amazing guys do on the rock. Yeah.
So your competition also, I think a huge factor then would be the type of boulder you are trying to summit. Is summit the right word? Yeah. So, and then you have technical officers who decide how difficult that particular one is.
So then there's like a grading that then gets fed through.
All right. So what are how is the competition done? What are you assessed on?
Shall I go through that?
You can go through that.
So, in bouldering, you're given in a typical competition, you're given 4 or 5 problems. They're known as different routes to climb, and the scoring is worked out on your average number of attempts to get to the top of each problem. One doesn't always get to the top of the problems, but that's the scoring. So the goal is to get to the top of all 5. And if you get to the top of all 5 and no one else does, then you've won. Right. If somebody else has, then they look at how many attempts it took you to get to the top. So falling is a big part of this climbing. So it would be almost impossible, very rare that somebody gets to the top of all 5 without actually falling off. There's generally quite a lot of falls involved in getting to the top of all 5 problems, and that's how it works, is the number of attempts to get to the top of these things. Some of the other disciplines have a slightly different method. So lead climbing, you only have one climb that you're doing, and it's how high you get on that one, and that also ends in a fall, and then you could get caught by a rope. So that's a little different. And then speed climbing is again quite different, where it's quite simply how long did it take you to get to the top, more or less like 100-meter hurdles. You've got some obstacles to get over, and how long does it take you to get to the end of it.
Okay.
So those are the 3 basic disciplines that we're going to see in the Olympic Games, and we'll see it in the Youth Olympic Games for the first time next year. We're hoping that somebody from South Africa will qualify to get to the Youth Olympics.
Yeah, don't look at me for that.
Wrong age anyway.
Okay, well, you've mentioned that Western Cape were the champs at the South African climbing championships.
Yeah.
So now the South African squad is heading for Munich next month.
Yep.
So can you give us some insight into what's going to be happening over there?
Well, Munich is really exciting because it is one of the primary World Cup events in the world, and we will really see there the top climbers from all over, and people don't really understand how big climbing is in these European cities. So places like Munich and Innsbruck, and that when they put on an event like this, they can have 6,000 to 8,000 people coming to watch somebody climb a rock.
Wow.
And that's quite spectacular, you know. The vibe is quite amazing. Each country can only send 5 people maximum, so only your best 5 climbers can go there. We're actually taking a team of 4, one chap from Gauteng, and the other 3 from the Western Cape.
Who are the 3 Western Cape climbers that will be going?
I will be one of them, and then we have Chris's son David, that is also going, and another guy, Rowan Tuselli, yes, and David Naude.
All right,
so
and that's the 18th to 19th of August.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And that will actually, for anyone who's interested, that is on, if you go to the IFSC website, you can watch the finals in real time.
Okay.
So
excellent. And then obviously the next huge thing, is the 2020 Tokyo Olympics.
Yes.
And climbing is an Olympic sport, right?
Indeed, and I think that has really helped a lot with boosting the visibility of climbing. It's now not just a bunch of funny-looking guys hanging around on rocks, but it's actually it's being seen as a proper sport.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to get a huge spotlight now.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, which is amazing.
And we'll see a bump up again next year with the Youth Olympic Games. You know, the competitors there and so on. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, next time you visit, you can tell us all about your development.
Indeed.
Your development strategies. Saskia, how can people get in touch with your federation if they'd like to join, even socially, or to register officially as a climber?
Well, there's multiple gyms that we are all training at, and there's lots of competitions, so you end up climbing in our bouldering leagues, and from there you can get selected to then start competing at a national level. Yeah.
So
And where are you now on your calendar year
Chris
for
might be
your
able to-
sport? Are you at the end or beginning?
Pretty much the end of it, but we
Yeah.
do have some competitions. Just around the corner from where we are sitting at the moment, there's a climbing gym called Block 11, and they're having a
winter
winter
fortnight
competition.
league.
Yep.
Yeah, that's happening.
It's
Yeah.
currently happening, and then they're going to be doing for the better climbers, and really great thing to watch. I forget what they call it now, but it's going to be a sort of a legends type competition where all the best climbers, because we've got a bunch of international climbers out here, as I mentioned before, and some of them will be taking part in this legends competition, which will be really exciting for anyone who wants to come and watch
Okay, great.
amazing
Yeah.
climbing.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure your people are very willing to help newbies
Yeah, of
get a
course.
taste for it.
Of
Hey.
course. Of
Okay.
course.
It's actually
Yeah.
one of the things which about the sport, which Saskia alluded to it earlier when she was saying, how social it is that if you're at a climbing gym and you turn to anybody and say, how do I do this? You
say,
will end up
"Hey,
not only with
how do I start
having
this route?
yeah,
Please
you-
help me out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And people will definitely.
you'll likely
be able
end
to
up
help.
with a new friend and
yes,
a
yes,
All right.
yes.
Well, there you go, Cape Town. The climbers of Western Cape have invited you to come over there, and
Please
they're going to
do.
show you how to climb.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations
very
on your
much.
achievements thus far, and
appreciate
all the
that.
best in Germany.
Thank you.
I hope
you.
you come back with gold. We really hope you come back with gold and come and brag with it on the show.
Great, great.
Okay,
Thank
till
you.
next time.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
folks, from climbing, that's it for today. But don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after the break.